Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Honor of Kings. So I wanted to talk with you a little bit about ways to study the Bible that's not necessarily verse mapping. I know we've done a couple with verse mapping. I've showed two different things. So I just wanted to show you a little bit about a different kind of mapping of the Bible. So we're going to talk about Genesis 26, and one of the first things I want to do is I want to put this picture down here because it's going to be the center. I'm not good at writing around stuff and then trying to put the picture in, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and post this in there, and I'm going to hold it down with some washi tape, and there you go, because there's a lot of this in this story. Okay, so this is Genesis chapter 26, and it is after Abraham has passed. Sarah passed when Isaac was in his 30s. She was 90 right when she gave birth to him, and then he was in his 30s when they went into for the sacrifice on the mountain. They came back. She had died when Abraham and Isaac were on their way back. So, okay. So for Genesis chapter 26, we're going to go ahead and read, but I want to give a little bit of background information. So this was after Abraham had passed, and Abraham had already dug wells, as you read. So what happens is, it's now Isaac's turn. His dad's gone. His mom's gone. He's pretty much an orphan. He has his brother. But there was a couple of things that he did in 26, like he went back to Abimelech. Now, you have to remember, Abimelech wasn't a personal name. It was probably a title, because there was Abimelech 100 years apart. So it was a title for what had happened in Genesis 26:1. You also have to remember Genesis 26:2. God told him, so Abimelech is a title. And make sure I spell it right. M-E, right. I almost spelled it wrong. Title, probably a king. And then God also had this same promise. God's promise to Isaac. Right? He said, don't go down to Egypt, right? And then I will perform the oath, which I swore to your father. So he was promised three things. One was land. Two was a nation would come from him. And three was a blessing. And this blessing wasn't just for Isaac. It was for all of his seed as well. So all of these lands are yours. Your descendants will multiply as the stars of heaven. And we're going to read this in just a minute. And in your seed, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, right? So then what happens is the same story, because they had went to Abimelech before. And when it was Abraham and Abraham and Sarah, and they had went before the king, and Abraham said, listen, Sarah, tell him you're my sister, which technically they were half stepsisters, half stepsister, or no, half sister, half brother, same father, different mothers. So they had went, and when Abraham's like, look, you're beautiful, and that must have been pretty beautiful to be 90 years old and still have kings ready to give up their kingdom for you. I mean, hello, yeah. So anyway, so they go, and Abimelech sees her, and then Abraham's like, tell him that we're brother and sister. So she did. He did. Then they figure out, oh, guess what? You're not. God's going to curse them. And then God said, no, wait, look, what you need to do is go to him, have him pray for you, have Abraham pray for you, and everything's going to be okay. So, okay, there's the whole backstory to that. So now let's go to what's going to happen in Genesis 26 is Isaac then goes to the king. He also went to Gerar. And he gets before Abimelech, which could possibly be the title, not a person. And he said the same thing to his wife, right? He's like, Rebecca, Listen, tell him you're my sister. Okay. I mean, we are kin. We're cousins, but still tell him you're my sister. So she did. And he was afraid. And they're like, what are you doing? You know, we could have died because of you. You were bringing this curse and this sin upon us, which they were. Legitimately so. The people of Gerar and Abimelech, they had a severe complaint. But anyway, moving on. Okay. So then Isaac, and here's the gist of it. In Genesis 26, 12 through 14, Isaac started becoming very wealthy and has started accumulating a lot of land. Isaac sowed in the land. So much stuff came back to him, and so much stuff that he found in the land that the Philistines got a little bit jealous in verses 12 through 14, which we're getting ready to read. And then Isaac was told, look, you have to leave. So let's read Genesis 26. And I'm finding. There we go. 26. I'm going to start about verse 12, right? Then Isaac sowed in the land, and this was after he had already had the issue with Abimelech. Then Isaac sowed in the land. Did everything go really dark? It did. Okay. Isaac sowed in that land and received in the same year 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him. And the man waxed great and went forward. This is Isaac, and grew until he become very great. Now this is wealth. He grew a lot, 100-fold. Think of taking everything you have, taking it 100 times over. For he had possession of flocks and of possessions of herds, and a great store of servants, and the Philistines envied him for all the wells which his father's servants had digged in the days of Abraham. Now Abraham's servants went out and digged the wells, which is why I have this picture of the well. So for all the wells which his father's servants had digged in the days of Abraham his father, the Philistines had stopped them up and filled them with earth. I don't know why they couldn't use them. It doesn't say, but they definitely were trying to stop. The Philistines were trying to stop Abraham from being blessed by God, and it didn't work. So now they're trying to stop Isaac as well. So then Isaac left Gerar, and he left Abimelech's area, and for all the wells which his father did, the Philistines stopped him. And Abimelech said to Isaac, "Go from us. You are too much. You're bigger than we are. We can't sustain you. We can't afford to take care of you." And then Isaac departed thence in verse 17 and pitched his tent in the valley of Gerar, and he dwelt there. You know, he's just living in a tent. This is a very wealthy man living in a tent in a valley. Okay, valley's always low, sorrow. He was grieving. He was sad. And Isaac digged again the wells of the water which they had digged in the days of Abraham his father, before the Philistines had stopped them after the death of Abraham. And he called their names after the names by which his father had called them. So Isaac goes and digs the same. He redigs. Is that a word? It will be today. He redigs, hyphenate, his father's old wells. What nourished his father, Isaac went back and dug it up. This is, to me, it's significant. And there's a couple reasons why it's significant, but let's go back to the text. Okay. And then he also named them the same names that his father had called them. And Isaac's servants digged in the valley and found there was a well of springing water. Now, the word springing water is living water, and Jesus is the living water. You can even look up, if I get my fingers right, you can look up the word. The Hebrew word for springing is actually living water. So there's a couple of things, there's a couple of things going on here that you need to think about we need to think about the significance spiritually. So Isaac's now on his own. He's got kicked out of the place where he was. God's made him a promise. And you know what? He's just now learning to walk and not walk in his father's footsteps. But the first thing he does is go back to the wells that his father dug and redigs them back up, right? That had already been buried over by the Philistines. So we can't live and serve God the way our parents served God. We can't do it. We have to find our own relationship with God and find our own well of water. Now, there is also, on the other hand, if you can consider it this way, when you backslide and you get away from God, and everybody does, so let's not act like we don't. We all do. I have many, many times. I tried to run from God so much it was pathetic, but it didn't work because God always kept calling me back, and here I am, and I'm thankful and grateful and honored and blessed, very grateful God called me back. But what happened was when I came back and I was trying to get myself back spiritually where I was, to hear the voice of God and everything else, where did I start? Well, I didn't know. I didn't know the new worship music. I didn't know where to start. So I went back to the songs I knew. I went back to like Amazing Grace, and I went back to Judy Jacobs, and I went back to those who were, when I was really on fire in the early 2000s, that's who I went back to. I went back to that well of water, to where I found life at one point, even in my younger years, just like Isaac went back to his dad. His dad had dug the well. Somebody else dug it. But Isaac remembered that life-giving water. But then here's a problem. This is where I think God's doing this, and this is kind of, here's what I'm looking at. So Isaac found in verse 19, Isaac found the living water. He found it, verse 19. And then what happens is the herdmen of Gerar, then they started striving with Isaac's herdmen, saying, this is our water. I don't care if your dad dug it. Abraham dug the water. But now Gerar is saying, nope, it's our water. And so the two groups of servants strove with one another. Gerar said, the water's ours, and they called the name of the well. And then that's Isaac, called the name of the well, I think that would be Esek, because they strove with him. And if you look up, and this will be verse 20, the Esek well, if you look up what that is, it's contention. Spiritually speaking, when you put yourself back to God, you're going to have people coming against you. You're going to have a spiritual fight on your hand to get back. What are you going to do with the contention? What are you going to do with it? They're saying, oh, no, you can't have that. This isn't yours. This isn't meant for you. You're not meant to be a Christian. Who are you fooling? You're a party animal. You're not meant for this. You're not meant for that. And so they started causing contention. So then Isaac's servants went in verse 21, and they dug another well. And the well of that one was the Sitna well. And if you look up the meaning of that, hatred. And maybe at this point, maybe Isaac was thinking to myself, what am I doing? This happens to be the craziest thing I think I've ever done. What am I doing? I'm not going to make this. I don't know how to lead. I don't know how to serve. I don't know how to interact with God. My father's dead. And these idiots are out here claiming every single piece of property that my dad dug, right? So it caused a lot of hatred. Then, verse 22, and he, which is Isaac, removed himself from all of it. From thence, he took himself out of it physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, out. And he digged another well, and for that they strove not. So everything that was his father's, there was contention or hatred over it. People were fighting over this. But then he digged his own, right? And let me think. And he called the name of it Rehoboth. So this will be verse 22. Rehoboth well means there is room. And I think this story, there's more to it. He built an altar there, and then they come back and they say, oh, here comes Abimelech's people. Isaac, buddy, hey, yeah, we see God's with you, and we see what God's done for you. So, why don't you come hang out with us? And Isaac's like, wait a minute. You didn't want anything to do with me before. You already kicked me out. You've set me aside. And they said, oh, no. Verse 28, right? Verse 28. Now, I don't know. I'm thinking about this in so many different levels. So, physically, verse 28, and Isaac said to them, hold on a bit. Let's go back up to 20. Let me think back. Okay, he went from there to Beersheba. Okay, God appeared to him. Fear not, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to multiply your seed for Abraham's sake. He's my servant. And then Isaac built an altar there and called upon the name of the Lord and pitched his tent there. Now, something also neat to notice, Isaac never called upon the name of the Lord until verse 25. Why, and I'm sitting out, I'm like, why would you wait? So he's out there working, and he's having contention. He's having all this hatred. He finally comes up with his own plan, his own place in his own area, new territory that his daddy never touched. And then 3 verses down, after doing all this digging, think about how much time it takes to dig that, put the rocks there. Then Isaac called upon the name of the Lord. Okay. Okay. I don't know. Wondering about that, but whatever. So he built an altar there, and he called upon the name of the Lord. He pitched his tent there, and there Isaac's servants digged a well. And then Abimelech went to him from Gerar, and Ahazuth, and one of his friends, and Phichol, I think it's Phichol. I'm probably butchering these names, and just blame my accent. That's fine. The chief captain of the army. So here come the big gurus, right? We were like, yeah, we got this. Military's coming. It's the king's BFF forever. And then here comes the military. And Isaac's like, wait, why are you coming to me now? You hate me. You sent me away from you. They're like, oh, dude, we certainly saw the Lord was with you. So we said, let there be an oath between us, even just between us, you, Isaac, and me, Abimelech the king. And we're going to make a covenant, even with the army guy right here, right? that you will do us no hurt. See, it was one thing when they kicked him out, when they thought he was worth nothing, when they didn't realize he had wealth, when he was still living off his daddy's legacy. But now that he's got his own and he's built his own right, and there's room for him because he's made it there, and then God blessed him, here comes the Abimelech. And he's like, dude, buddy, friend, guess what? So please don't hurt us. We've never touched you. Technically, they hadn't. And as we had done unto you nothing but good, and we sent you away in peace. They forgot about Ezek and Sitnah. Whatever. And it came to pass the same day that the servants came and told him concerning the well which they digged, and said, guess what? We just found water. Now, the well was dug, and Isaac already named it. And Isaac already blessed the Lord. And they didn't have any water in that well yet. Think about the significance of that. He had already went through the contention. He went through the hatred. He tried living through his dad's legacy. He tried living off his dad's name. He tried living off of what his dad had provided. He was fought every step of the way. He finally decided to make his own way, to make his own room. He called upon the name of the Lord. The people come back and they're like, dude, oh, you're my brother. And he's like, nah, I don't know about that. And then after all this was done and they made peace, they just found water. We found water. verse 32, water is found, and this would be at Rehoboth. They found water. Oh, there's so many ways that you could apply this. Like when you go back and you're digging your own well, you keep digging, you're going to fight through the contention of angry spirits and demons mad because you're not playing their games or listening to their stupidity anymore. You're going to deal with the hatred. You're going to deal with warfare. But then you're going to figure out your own little niche, your own little thing with God. How you pray, how you worship, how you spend time in the Word. And when this happens, people are going to come back and they're going to try to be your friend again. Oh, dude, you're back, man. I thought when you backslid, I thought you were gone for good. You're like, no, I wasn't gone for good. Why are you talking to me now? You weren't my friend when I needed you, when I was down and out, and my dad was dead, and my mom was dead, and my wife was barren. Where were you? You know? So, and Isaac held his peace. He kept his mouth shut. Okay, yeah. I mean, he reluctantly got into it, and they had a feast, and he said, yeah, I'm not going to come after you, because he realized he was more powerful than they were, but they knew it too. Abimelech knew Isaac had more power, and I'm sorry for covering my hand over my mouth because I keep doing that. I don't know why. But anyway, after all that was over, they came in verse 32, said, we just found water. We have just found water. Then, right? Esau started taking wives out of the same group of people that aggravated him. Oh, total other story. So this is what I want to do. Most of this stuff was easy to read. It was just reading it. But when you actually look at the names, you know, the Esek well, the Sitna well, Rehoboth well, when you look at the names, you're actually seeing what was happening to Isaac spiritually. He had to fight that good fight of faith. He had to deal with the hatred. He had to put away his own hatred and walk with a pure heart. He had to call upon the name of God. Look at this. 20, 21, 22, 25. Guess what? Verse 32, water's found. So when you do chapters, and if there are special names of towns and or wells and or places, look up what they mean. Go back to the original Hebrew or Greek or Aramaic and look up what it means, because I'm telling you, it's going to give you a deeper perspective of just literally reading it straightforward. There's so much information. There's so much to know what's going on in this story. And I'm telling you, you can find it out. You know, you can see what happened. It was enough to know that, you know, everywhere the man went, somebody was trying to stop him from having his stuff. And, you know, it's just, wow. Wow. It was the same day. Same day. Guess what? We just found water. They'd already dug the well. They already dug it. They didn't have any water. And it was just sitting there. Could you imagine digging? You redig your dad's well, you get it contention. You redig another well your dad had already dug. You're dealing with the hatred. You dig your own, there's no water. But you still decide to bless God right where you are. Isaac called upon God's name, verse 25. And when you submit to that, with no water in sight, just knowing you've established yourself that you're going to stay, like Job said, though you slay me, yet will I serve you, God. Though you slay me, you can kill me, you can take away my home, my cars, my families, you could take it all. Though you take everything from me, God, I still serve you. And when Isaac got to that point, when he got there, God provided. Glory to God. Okay, so I'm going to call that, I don't know, the digging of the wells, redigging of the wells. I'm not sure what I'm going to call that. So as a little update, My voice sounds a little bit better than what it did last week. I actually went to the doctor on Thursday. I broke down because I couldn't take it anymore, and I felt so bad. And she said, which you can probably hear, she walked in the room and she said, "You have bronchitis. I can hear you wheezing from here." I've been dealing with bronchitis, and yes, I'm still wheezing. I can hear myself. And I remember when I was in bed one night and I was laying down and I could hear this music, and I thought, what is that song? I mean, I could just hear it. And I thought, when my daughter was playing music like 2 rooms away, it dawned on me it was my lungs. Anyway, all right. So, and I like these stickers really match. I don't know. There's the whale, gives us a visual reference. Abimelech was the title, but God's promise was land, a nation, and a blessing. But the blessing would continue for all generations, and it has. But I really like this story. So whether you are trying to serve in your parents' legacy, like you're not born again yourself, get born again. Dig your own well. You need to come up with Rehoboth yourself. Or whether you're returning to God, you may be coming up against contention or hatred. You may be, but guess what? Dig your own well. Dig your own well. All right. So I guess I'm going to call that one. I don't know. It is what it is. There are so many different fun things in the Bible and so many interesting things. And I could have took this verse by verse, but I think looking at this whole entire chapter, it tells the story by just knowing literally the meaning of 4 words, but technically 3. 3 words: Esek, Sitnah, Rehoboth. And yeah. So there you go. All Bible study is not about taking each individual verse, because that's so daunting. Like, could you imagine trying to do that for life? And every single verse that's there in the Bible, you're going to break it down and look up every single word. So we don't always have to do it. Sometimes the stories are pretty easy, and there you have it. So I will see you next time on the King of Kings. Please let me know what you thought about this. Maybe you have more information than me. I'm sure you do. I just looked at this a little bit lower than surface level. Like, I just didn't read it up. We did a little bit of digging, but not a whole lot. We dug our own well on the wells. But let me know in the comments below what you think, what you would like to do next. Is there another chapter? If you want to look at the whole entire book, Genesis is a lot. As you can see, one chapter took us quite a bit to get through. So, what are your thoughts? What do you want to do? And I have a camera. It's there. I just didn't hook it up today. I'm tired. Honestly, I'm tired, and I'm going to save my voice. So I will let you go, and I will see you next time on The Honor of Kings.